Hello everyone, it is Friday the 3rd of January and this is the first ever episode of Premier Live podcast.
We're aiming to bring a podcast out once a month to keep you all up to date in the Premier League world and so you can hear our thoughts.
So Ollie, how are you today?
I'm fine, thanks.
So obviously our club Brighton scored a late equaliser on Wednesday through Ali Jahanbakhsh, and what a goal that was.
Absolutely spectacular. Honestly, nothing better has come this decade.
Okay, so this podcast we're looking to bring it to you once a month, and we're going to talk about our views on the Premier League. So today we're going to talk about how to fix Arsenal this January transfer window and the big talking point of VAR.
So as we already said, we're going to talk about how to fix Arsenal. And Joe, what do you think?
Well, I think clearly they need a new centre-back because Socrates and David Luiz aren't working. And they need a new centre-mid after reports that Granit Xhaka and Lucas Torreira are going to try and force moves out of the club this summer. And we're not sure about Aubameyang. 1 minute he's fully committed, 1 minute he's leaving. So I think Arsenal need to fully understand what he's going to do come the end of the season or this month to then plan on for the future. So what positions do you think they need to bring in as well then?
I really think they need to revamp the whole team. So everyone, apart from potentially Leno, maybe Kieran Tierney, and just have a whole
He's had
refresh.
quite a lot of injury problems though this season, Kieran Tierney. He hasn't had his chance to come in.
No, I think he will come good after a while though. So basically the whole team, bring in 2 new strikers, bring in apart from potentially Pepe as well. He can stay because
He's quite young as well.
He's quite young and he's shown himself. So basically revamp the whole team, bring in 3 new midfielders or 2 midfielders, left mid, bring in a whole new back 4, and potentially a new backup goalkeeper because currently there's not necessarily anyone good enough.
Yeah, because Leno has not had very good games recent as of late. You had his mistake against Chelsea where he just flapped at the ball, which led to their first or second goal.
Yeah, it was a very poor showing, and against Man United they were very good. Nicolas Pepe in particular, we've already picked him out as staying hopefully for Arsenal because I do think that he could really come good and they could earn a lot of money off of a transfer in the next 3 years.
I mean, and also obviously they have that injury to Callum Chambers that has ruled him out for 6 to 9 months. So that's another player, backup player gone. But they've got some youth as well, as in Gabriel Martinelli, Saka, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Reece Nelson. And do you think it's time to give them more of an extended run in the first team? Because they're younger, they have more energy.
I really don't think so. I think although the youngsters are coming out all through the Premier League, we've seen it in many teams, including Chelsea with Mason Mount and Tammy Abraham.
Brighton with Aaron Connolly and Steve Alzat,
Yeah.
who couldn't get a game out on loan as a striker at Swindon last season, and he's played centre mid, right wing back, cam, all for us this season.
But I do think that people like Reece Nelson, although they are very talented, I think they do deserve a loan out to the Championship because I don't think they're good enough to be performing for what should be a top 4 team and what always was a top 4 team.
Yeah, because now they've gone down a bit. They've sacked Unai Emery, obviously. Freddie Ljungberg, let's face it, didn't have the best managerial reign as interim manager. But then you've had signs from Mikel Arteta. Obviously, he's learnt from Pep Guardiola, and he's trying to bring in some of his philosophy. They played well against Chelsea. Although they lost the game in the last 10 minutes, they still played well. As you said just then, against Man United, they're excellent. So there are positive signs, but there are still some reassurances they need at the back and in midfield. So, what players have you identified for them to bring in?
Well, again, you've seen the links.
Adrian Rabiot.
Yeah,
Apparently he's
former PSG player as well, central midfielder. My only issue is that he is quite small, so I don't think that he would necessarily do well in midfield against, say, Bournemouth with their tallest player, Philip Billing, who, again, is very tall. So, in aerial duels, I don't think he would necessarily do too well. And the only way I think that Leno would potentially be able to get a good ball over the top is if it's going to a striker or a defender even, because he won't be able to do much in the air.
I mean, obviously, their centre back, there are problems there. Socrates, David Luiz, not good enough, and they often make mistakes. And Callum Chambers has been ruled out. He started against Chelsea, so I think Dale Upamecano could be a good option for them to bring in. A nice ball playing centre back. He's confident on the ball. I mean, but will he want that step down though? Because he's currently playing for top of the league, Leipzig.
Yeah. Again, I think if he does go to Arsenal, I think it could be a good move for Arsenal, but not necessarily a good move for him. You heard also in September around time how Arsenal were also interested in Lewis Dunk, as were Leicester City. But I think again Lewis Dunk could really bolster their team, even though obviously I wouldn't want him to go. There are very few good players who would fit into that Arsenal team that are in their price range.
Yeah, and also you have like Graham Potter has admitted that if the right bid came in for Shane Duffy this transfer window, then Brighton would let him go. And as a backup for Arsenal, you've seen him play for Brighton in the Premier League. He's not scared of anything. He'll put his body on the line in front of the ball. Like, is that something Arsenal need? Like, not necessarily a neat playing defender out of the back. They need someone that will just reassure, hoof the ball long. Like, you've got the pace of Lacazette, Aubameyang, Pepe up top to chase down the long balls. And he would put his body in front of everything.
Yeah, no, most definitely, but I do think there are many, many defenders like that, and potentially some better than Shane Duffy, because, you know, again, he's not necessarily amazing. Before he joined Brighton, he had...
That's better at Blackburn.
Yeah, which
just
he
3
got...
own goals and red cards.
Yeah, 3 own goals, 2 red cards in 5 games, which wasn't good, and you do wonder if Arsenal will look at that, although it was all those seasons ago, and say no.
But I think that could also have been a statement from him saying, I want to leave this club. Because there were a lot of rumours that he wanted to leave. But I agree with you, there are better players. But also I reckon they could get like a player like Manuel Akanji, like very good on the ball as well, like Upamecano. But it's just like a bit more experience and probably that bit more reassurance about him at the back. So like I do think Arsenal need a centre-back that is calm on the ball. So with the ability in their team, they can pass it out from the back really well. And Mikel Arteta, obviously, as I've just said before, learning from Pep Guardiola, I think he'd like to see the ball being played out from the back and keeping possession.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I think if Arsenal can keep possession against many, many teams, including potentially, I'd say, Chelsea, maybe even Manchester City, they will be able to keep clean sheets. Because although Chelsea, Man City, they score lots, and we've seen that throughout the past few seasons, how their goal difference is above anyone else's. But I really do think that Arsenal could have a really good side, and again with the Kanji, he could be really influential in the season if they do buy him.
Yeah, and then also like centre mids, as we've posted before, Granit Xhaka and Lucas Torreira are both trying to force a move out. They're both good ball-winning central midfielders, so obviously they're going to need to try and bring that one. And obviously Mikel Arteta has reportedly contacted Rabiot. I think another great fit for that team would be Dennis Zakaria from Borussia Mönchengladbach. And he's quite quick. He was not afraid to put a tackle in. He's strong, and I think he's about 6 foot or something like that. So I think that could be a good option to bring in, because you need someone in that team that's not scared to put a tackle in. Because you see, like, their midfield, the ball gets through them quite a lot, and they're not necessarily involved in the game as much as I think Mikel Arteta would like them to be. And obviously, the players, maybe they fitted Unai Emery's system, they might not necessarily fit Mikel Arteta's system.
No, I do agree with you there, but I want to go back to defenders and Callum Chambers, how he's injured, and I am just wondering if that really will affect Arsenal's season, because if you have a look at him last season, was it Fulham he was playing for?
Yeah.
They went down second to bottom, 19th, and you know, obviously it wasn't a very good time for Callum Chambers at all, because he didn't necessarily prove himself. He wasn't always used against
bigger
teams.
clubs, yeah.
when really, coming from Arsenal, he should have. So I'm just wondering if they should let Callum Chambers go out to another club, because I really do think that it might be the right move for him and for Arsenal.
Yeah, and then also, he's still quite young, so like mid-20s, I think, and you'll probably get a bit of money for him. The problem with Arsenal is that they need to invest more money into the club. Like the owners, you saw they got about 75 million transfer budget in the summer, and realistically, as a manager, you're going to be able to bring in enough top quality players to push for the Champions League. So I mean, although Unai Emery, he was quite a bad manager and didn't really settle in at Arsenal, if you're getting those really low transfer budgets for a club that's expected to be pushing into the top 4 of the league and try and get Champions League football, I mean, it could all be different if they won the Europa League. That's the question going around. Would it have been different if they won the Europa League? But I still don't think it would, because the amount of money that's getting invested in that team is just not enough. Like, you don't have enough money to sign the quality of players like Dale Upamecano. You're looking at about 40 mil for him, and Kanji probably costs about the same, maybe a bit more. If they're looking to get another centre mid in as well, they're looking to get loads of players in, but they just don't have the funds being invested into the club to do it, which is why I think they're not necessarily performing as well on the pitch or bringing the calibre of players that they want to try and push into the Champions League.
Yeah, I think the same sort of thing happened with Tottenham Hotspur in the early 2000s, which is what I think Arsenal should do. They should begin to rebuild, but slowly. You see, in the early 2000s, Tottenham Hotspur were stuck in round about 10th in the Premier League. Although they are one of the very few, if not the only club who has not been relegated from the top flight of English football, they were stuck in 10th, 11th, in places mid-table, but very often during their games. And you see in on Sky Sports, there's the Premier League decades or whatever, and you'll always see Spurs games, and they'll get, say, 2, 3, 4 goals, but still lose the game, which I think is what Arsenal need to begin to do. I think Arsenal need to sort of change the whole system that they play. And again, with Unai Emery sacking, I don't think it was necessarily because he was a bad manager. It's the same with Freddie Ljungberg. I think if the players actually performed as well as they could have,
and they want to play for the manager.
I think the players could have a massive impact on their games and how hard they work.
Yeah, because reports as well coming in from various sources that apparently since Mikel Arteta has stepped through the door, he has said that Mesut Ozil's attitude in training has been impeccable. Like, when Unai Emery was there, we saw, he didn't want to play, he wanted to leave. Same with Aubameyang, he wanted to leave. But since Mikel Arteta's come in, some of the big players have wanted to stay and started performing. And I think that's why their performances have started to get better and better under Mikel Arteta in his first 3 games in charge, and they actually want to play for the manager, which is why I don't necessarily think they need to make too many signings in the January transfer window. They do need to bring quite a couple of players in, just to reassure like their midfield if they're running thin. If Torreira and Xhaka do end up going, so you have a young Guendouzi who's not necessarily that experienced as a central midfielder, and as defence, as we've already said, Luis Socrates. Mistakes are made for them to make in games, and Callum Chambers out. I don't really know Arsenal squad that well, so I don't know what sort of backup as a 4th choice centre back they have. So I definitely think centre back is they really need to bring a centre back in the January transfer window.
Again, talking about the backup, so central back, I can't remember if Rob Holding's left or not.
He might still be injured.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's still injured or he's coming back.
I'm not sure, as we said, we don't necessarily keep up to date with Arsenal and everything, but no, I really do think that they need to revamp the whole team after a period of years, but change the defence. It's not good enough.
Do like what Tottenham did, like they didn't spend any money when they were building the stadium. Then this summer you saw them spend about 60 mil on Tanguy Ndombele. They spent quite a bit of money on Brian Sessegnon. I mean, they're only 2 signings they've made, but in the next few seasons they'll have to bring in another attacking midfielder and another attacking midfielder for when Eriksen goes at the end of the season, and they are doing a gradual rebuild. And I think other Premier League clubs, as well as Arsenal, need to think about doing that. Like Man United, if sell Paul Pogba, they'll get about 100 mil for him if he goes, which is enough money to bring in about 2 or 3 good quality players around 50-40 mil.
Yeah, no, most definitely. With Eriksen going, actually, I really do think that he'll go to Everton, because Everton have been linked with some top players, namely Koulibaly, James Rodriguez, and Lorenzo Insigne. And I do think, because Eriksen is very good and very talented player, I think he could potentially go to Everton.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen with Eriksen going, but I do think that you'll see him move to a big club like Inter Milan, because they've been linked with him recently. But I think clubs need to follow what Tottenham have done, especially Arsenal. Sell a couple of big players. Like if Aubameyang does leave, then they'll get a good amount of money for him, and they need to invest that money back into other new players to bring in.
I think the issue with Arsenal is when they built the new Emirates, because their former stadium, they had to pay off a lot of money, which, if I'm correct, they're still paying off now. They had Arsene Wenger in charge for so many years, and that's because they couldn't necessarily afford to bring in a new manager. So when he did eventually leave, it was a massive blow for Arsenal, you know, because he was a very good manager, but also because they had to bring in a new manager, so they had to actually pay new wages and have to look and pay more money for these players that the manager wanted to bring in, whereas they couldn't if Wenger didn't retire and leave. I think they could have kept a lot of money, and they could have potentially paid off for the old stadium.
I mean, as you said there as well, with Wenger, a lot of their players there, so they have like Ozil or Aubameyang. Was Socrates there when Wenger was there?
I think he was signed potentially.
Yeah. And then I think Leno. Leno wasn't there when Wenger was there. That was Czech. But a lot of those players there at the club now are still there from when Arsene Wenger was there. So obviously that's a complete different philosophy of style of play to Unai Emery, to Freddie Ljungberg, to Mikel Arteta. So I think that could be a bit of a problem as well. They've been used to playing under the same manager for so long, and all of a sudden under Emery their philosophy changed. Not necessarily got on board with Emery. Mikel Arteta looks like they're getting on board, but does Mikel Arteta have the right players in that team to suit his philosophy of play?
No, exactly. I do think that Mikel will want to bring in new players in the January transfer window, which has opened very recently. But no, I do think that Arsenal could come good, dependent on what they do in the transfer market.
Yeah, I agree. So that's going to close off this section, and we'll move on to VAR very shortly. Okay, so coming to the second part of the show, well, we've had some of the latest transfer news here. So Chelsea have had a £34 million bid rejected for Moussa Dembele, the Lyon striker from Sky Sports. So do you think a striker is necessarily a position they need to bring in the transfer window, considering Tammy Abraham's form this season?
I think although Tammy Abraham has done very well, I do think they still need a new striker. Tammy Abraham is still very inexperienced, you know, only playing with Aston Villa in the second tier of English football. So I do think although Tammy Abraham is doing very well, they definitely need to bring in a new striker, and I think Moussa Dembele could actually be the one to bolster them.
Well, I mean, Sky reported that Lyon are confident of keeping hold of their striker in this transfer window. And as you said with Tammy Abraham as well, yes, he's tall, yes, he's scored goals, but he's not necessarily as mobile as other strikers. So you see like Aaron Connolly and Neil Mapai that are confident of chasing balls down and putting pressure on the back line. Against Chelsea on Wednesday, you didn't really see Tammy Abraham do that. You saw he was there, he's really good on the ball to create the chances and to let the chances go. But I didn't need a player like Moussa Dembele that is quick, you know, happy to chase down balls, like playing as pressing forward, happy to get shots off, and he's a good goal scorer as well.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I think Chelsea could invest in a few new positions as well. I think left back is also one of them, because Marcus Alonso and Emerson
yeah.
aren't necessarily the best choice. As you saw, Liverpool, for what they had, got an absolute bargain for Andy Robertson, and so did Leicester for Harry Maguire, both from Hull City. I think there are many good players at Hull, but they're just being let go too easy.
Yeah, and also you see Liverpool paying the release clause for Minamino, who is a very good player from Salzburg, and he's coming in as their backup right back for 7.75 million of a player of his quality. Like, if anything was happening to Trent Alexander-Arnold, I'm sure they'll be comfortable putting Minamino in, and he'll perform solid. He'll be solid at the back.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I think Liverpool have done very well this season. No, they haven't signed many people. They signed the youngster
Van der Berg.
from Fulham.
Yeah, and Van der Berg.
Yeah, Van der Berg, and obviously Minamino, the right back, who we did actually talk about in one of our interviews. But no, I think they've made a very good signing, and he performed very well against them in the Club World Cup. So I think he could potentially perform really well and be an influential player.
Yeah, and also, I'm worried for Tottenham, as Jose Mourinho has said today that he fears the worst over Harry Kane's injury and is totally convinced he'll be out for a long period of time. So is that another position Tottenham need to look at to bring in January? Or do you reckon Jose Mourinho would be comfortable playing Heung-min Son up front and bringing Ryan Sessegnon in on the left-hand side of midfield?
I mean, you've seen over the last few seasons how influential Harry Kane is. Over 20 goals last few seasons, apart from I think last season where he was injured most of it.
Yeah.
But I think having Son in up top is a very good choice. But Ryan Sessegnon,
I think it's just a bit too inexperienced to come in
he's
and play.
very young, and you saw against some of the teams that they should be beating, which a few of them they did. But against Brighton,
He didn't necessarily play that well.
no, he was coming in, he ran into the middle, it was 1-on-1 against the goalkeeper, and he shot it wide.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to be fair, a player of his quality, playing for Tottenham Hotspur, should be scoring goals like that.
And also people like Man United have been linked to names of Jack Grealish and James Maddison, and it's rumoured that Aston Villa need to sell a load of players this January transfer window to meet FFP regulations. I mean, do you reckon they would be able to get the most out of selling Jack Grealish for a lot of money? Because Man United are a club that probably need to strengthen in that position. Jack Grealish has proved himself this season. He's homegrown, he's English, so I'll put a bit more money on. And Manchester United are a club, as you saw, they desperately wanted Harry Maguire. They spent 80 mil on him. Once they have their eyes set on one player, they'll go and buy that player, no matter how much it will cost them, so they've got the money.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I think Jack Grealish could be a very good addition to the Manchester United team. But, you do fear for him because very recently, Paul Pogba's agent has come out and said that he would fear for any player going to Manchester United in fear that they would lose their career completely. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has come out and said that he shouldn't necessarily be saying things like that, but I do kind of agree with him. You see the likes of Paul Pogba, who's joined Man United again, and he's just gone downhill. Marcus Rashford, although he was very good and has been very good, I think he has got a lot more potential, and if he goes to, say, Chelsea even, Arsenal maybe, I think he could potentially be a lot better. We saw it with Lukaku, very good spell at Everton,
And then
sold to Manchester United for the big bucks, and then
he did well in his first season.
Yeah.
I think it was when Jose Mourinho got sacked, or that season when Jose Mourinho got sacked from the beginning of it. They just hadn't played very well. Like when they came second in the Premier League under Mourinho, it wasn't for City that season, being Centurions. I think if Man City went in that form, they would have had a very good chance of winning the league that season. So I think it has all been this decline of the club since Jose Mourinho started that season where he got sacked. I mean, you see the Premier League table at the time of recording, they're fifth. Like really, a club of Manchester United's calibre, who have been performing as bad as they have been this season, fifth. Like surely Man United fans, obviously they're not going to be happy because they want to push for the Champions League, but surely they should be happy with that position they're in now, regarding their recent performances as well.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And to be behind Leicester before the season started, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see Leicester finishing above Manchester United, but you know, they have. They're second. You know, quite a few points behind Liverpool. But no, they're second and they've done very well.
Okay, so moving on to the last section of this first episode of the podcast, we're going to go a bit boring and we're going to say our thoughts on VAR.
Video assistant referee. Before the season started, it was actually meant to be that the referee would walk over or run over to a screen in the dugout and review the footage of, you know, the incident.
With the assistant of the people in Stockley Park,
Yes.
talking them through it and what they've seen. And you see it work well in the Bundesliga. They walk over to the monitor, people tell them in the video assistant referee's place where they sit, and they talk them through what's happened whilst they've rewatched the incident, and it's worked fine out in the Bundesliga. You don't hear any complaints about that, do you?
No. The issue is with most people is the worry that the referees are going to get abused when walking over if they make a decision against that fan group's team, because you know, obviously no one likes to see a decision go against your team, but sometimes it's got to happen. But we've seen recently with Timu Puki, Roberto Firmino when he scored his goal a bit earlier in the season.
Pedro Neto as well against
Yeah.
Liverpool on Sunday.
When they've been literal inches offside, and
Yeah.
Jack Grealish, wasn't it, against
Yeah.
Burnley?
Where not even his boot was offside.
It was the back of his heel,
and they draw a line from ridiculous angles as well.
yeah, and you saw with Dan Burns' goal, and
Against Bournemouth when his shoulder,
Yeah.
it wasn't even his shoulder,
it was his elbow.
it's like his elbow, and even then, you see other officials not count elbows, because if they score with their elbow,
It's
then
handball.
it'll be handball, and it won't count.
Exactly. No, I think the issue with VAR currently is that they're getting the rules incorrect. You know, they're ruling arms offside, but you can
But you
only
can't-
be offside with the part of your body you can score with. So say his foot was offside, and he scored with his foot, or has even scored at all, then yeah, it'd be offside. If his head was offside,
Yeah, that's fine,
Yeah.
I can understand that.
but it was his elbow, and I don't necessarily think it should have counted. The same with Roberto Firmino. It was his armpit, which is very close to the shoulder, but technically would still be handball, I think.
Yeah, because if the ball has hit his armpit, there's a
Mm.
chance it'll hit the underside of his arm as well.
Yeah,
which
no,
VAR
most
would
definitely.
look at and rule out as offside. And they're brought in to solve and overturn clear and obvious errors.
Yeah,
We see Pedro Neto at the weekend against, I think it was Liverpool,
yeah,
where it was literally half his little toe was offside. And that's just not clear and obvious. It took about 2 or 3 minutes to look at the decision. Aaron Connolly, when he won the penalty against Everton, even then I was sitting in the North Stand that game, and he was rolling around and he was waving to us going, no, that's not a penalty. And again, as you see, it took them about 2 or 3 minutes to review that footage, and fans don't know what's going on. So they're standing around like not knowing what's happening, whether they're going to get a penalty, whether it's going to be a free kick. The players standing around on the pitch, it's interrupting the flow of the game, and I just don't think it's working.
no, most definitely. But if you see VAR in cricket, even VAR in cricket works incredibly well, you know. But I think it's also been designed to help Liverpool win the league. Like, I know people are gonna get mad at me saying, but I do think it has. Although Liverpool haven't had the most overturns with VAR, many other clubs, say champions contenders like Leicester, potentially even Sheffield United, Manchester City, clubs like that have been
Hard
say
done by.
yeah, and deemed offside when say they're nowhere near offside.
Because I mean, you saw against Brighton as well, and Sheffield United had 2 goals disallowed for
Yeah.
offside. Maybe one of them should have been disallowed, but another one, I don't think it should have been disallowed.
No, most definitely. I was lucky not to go to that game, but no, and you saw, there was the Liverpool game again against Wolves, when Van Dijk, the ball hit his arm, and then he kicked it away, which then led to scoring a goal. But the referee said that the goal still counted because apparently it was too far back.
And then if you go back to I think it's Champions League final, when Liverpool got that early penalty against Tottenham, when Moussa Sissoko slid in to try and block the ball, and his arm was behind his back, and it hit his arm, and that was deemed as handball by VAR and on a penalty.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And when Liverpool played Manchester City too, how Trent Alexander-Arnold had his arm out, it hit his arm, hit his torso, hit his arm again in the Liverpool penalty area. Then Liverpool went up and scored a goal, which, you know, obviously shouldn't have been allowed because it should have been a Manchester City penalty, which I think helped Liverpool tenfold.
Well, yeah, and then also you were just saying there about when VAR didn't disallow that Liverpool goal because the incident happened too far back at the beginning of the attack. Well, you see Dan Burns' goal against Bournemouth. That was about 10-15 seconds between it with that goal now scramble. Like, if that was too far back in the attack, how is that? Like 15 seconds after the incident happened when he was barely offside. Like,
Yeah, no, I really do think VAR's either got to sort itself out or get rid completely. But at least they're being consistent with the awful decisions and not just being on and off.
You know what I mean? And finally, just before we finish this episode, you see the rumours on Sky Sports, and they're saying that fans will be able to hear, you would have been able to hear the VAR decisions before the end of the year over the loudspeakers at the ground. But that hasn't happened. Yeah, has it? I don't hear that happening.
No, I do think it should happen, and they should be mic'd up, because you know, then if they are saying biased things about one club and how they want them to win the league or whatever, people will hear that or whatever,
Yeah.
or how they want them to win. People will hear that, and then, you know, obviously that'll put a stop to it.
I mean, you hear it in rugby as well, where the video assistant referee is mic'd up to the ref, and that's mic'd up to the ground, so the whole ground can hear what's actually going on when they review a decision. And I think that's what VAR needs to have in order for it to be successful in English football.
Yeah, no, I think nowadays football has gone a bit crazy with the sort of VAR though. I think it is potentially made to do good things, but you heard at a few games fans chanting that it's not football anymore, which, you know, to a degree I do agree with.
Yeah.
It isn't football anymore. It's not the passion of jumping up and down, screaming when your team scores a late winner against the top team in the world. It's not that anymore. It's just praying and hoping that it's not disallowed because it was offside or a foul earlier on.
Yeah, and then also against Chelsea with Brighton, after Ali Jahanbakhsh scored the overhead kick, yeah, there were cheers of joy when the ball first went in, but you heard after the whistle blew and the game got started again, there was a cheer as loud as when the goal was in because the Brighton fans knew that it wasn't ruled out by VAR.
Yeah, no, most definitely, and I think VAR can also be biased against big teams because, you know, they're the big teams, they're the best teams in sometimes Europe, and, like, you know, the officials are very scared to put things past them. But there was a new rule implemented this year that if a player goes into the VAR room during the game and complains to the VAR people, they will be sent off immediately.
Well, I mean, and
I think anyone who takes at least 13-mile trip to Stockley Park should get a medal, not a red card.
yeah, because the closest ground to Stockley Park is about 13-14 miles away. So I don't know why that rule was introduced, but I do agree with you. I do think that the referees shouldn't be afraid to go up and use the screens. Because what's the point? If the referee hasn't seen anything wrong with it, then why should he then listen to someone else and necessarily hear their opinion that's different to the referees and change the goal just because one person said that? I think they need to have a discussion. Yeah, maybe it'll take a bit longer, but at least they're having a good discussion about it, and they know what the decision has come to is certain that it's either onside, offside, penalty, no penalty, or a red card or no red card.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you there. But again, VAR can be used to be good. It can be used to be bad. You do see many times it will take about 3, 4, 5 minutes just to have a look to see, oh yeah, his finger was offside.
Yeah.
And it is very disappointing, really, what this game's come to, so people could win.
Oh, yeah. So that is going to draw the end to our first episode of this podcast. As we said at the beginning, we're aiming to bring this out once a month, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. So you can DM us on this Instagram account of your thoughts on VAR, what Arsenal need to do in the transfer window, and on Tottenham and Chelsea with their striker issues. And also, we'd like to send in your suggestions for what to talk about next time on the podcast, and you'll get a mention and we'll talk about your topic. So thank you for listening.
We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Goodbye.